Hello everybody and welcome back to week number 4 of the Smite SPL. My name's Taco and I'll be joined here by Ron and Jobber today.
They cannot get rid of me. I'm still here. I'm sorry to everybody out there.
Well, that's one thing to be said for sure, potentially. But first and foremost, just want to say thank you to SmiteVOD for being able to provide the audio that makes every single one of these broadcasts possible. Really do appreciate everything you guys do. And that's not all that we have going on for today either. We've actually got a few pretty cool things going on for Smite. Speaking of which, this Pro League, it's all about that pathing to Worlds. That's one of the main things that we have going on coming up in January. So I don't know about you guys, but if there's anywhere I definitely want to be, it's at HRX in January.
Yeah, I've been to Worlds twice as a fan, and now I hope to go after I win the caster.
And
wouldn't that be sick, guys? But no, Worlds is amazing, and everybody should definitely go, especially if you like Smite.
Yeah, so make sure you purchase your tickets over at hi-rezexpo.com. You want to make sure that you get it before they're all sold out, and believe me, those things actually do sell out. So that is one of the main things we have going on. And following up after that, we actually also have some free Enigma chests going on this weekend as well for 3 first wins. So if you're looking to get together a crew, or maybe even just try and solo queue a couple of those yourself, either way, you want to make sure you get those 3 first wins of the day.
You can actually see in this graphic, on the left is a Wheelix and on the right is Chalk. I know everybody back there likes whenever I do this. I explain who's on screen just for everybody at home, doing my best here.
Well, appreciate it, Ron, for everybody at home that might not be able to see that is, in fact, a Wheelish and Chalk on the screen. Chalk looking a little bit spooky there, but either way, those Enigma chests got some pretty sick skins, so if you want to make sure to pick those up, 3 first wins is all it's going to take. And on top of that, I know you guys like checking out this stream, particularly because you love watching all the Smite action, but that's not all the action that hi-rez has going on. We actually do have our Paladins Pro. You can check them out on Twitter. They're starting off around 3 p.m., and that's going to be a pretty exciting, just look at some of those orgs.
Especially if you are a person who only knows organizations. A lot of people don't know these smaller teams, but you have like Ninjas in Pajamas, you have Mouse Esports, you have Navi. It's actually kind of insane.
And then that's one thing to definitely check out if you're a fan of hi-rez and a lot of the other games we have going on here. But of course, today, for us at least, it's all about Smite. EU in particular, over in Europe, actually pretty tight race so far between these teams. And that is one thing that a lot of the European teams are trying to keep in mind.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 4 and the 5 spot. You know, elevate above Energy is not something that you would expect, especially after last split. Energy needs to step it up, but Elevate is doing very well, not even as a spoiler, just as a great team.
It's not even just Energy that's a little bit worried right now. You also got to keep in mind that Rival having a little bit of struggles going on as well. But of course, you guys want to know what matches we're going to be playing today. So we'll just take a quick look at the schedule. And in fact, there is a couple of spicy matchups in particular. I'm looking at Valence versus Obey.
Valence versus Obey, I think, is a very good teller of how Valence is as a team, especially versus Obey, where, you know, going into the split, we would say Dignitas looks like the best team in the world. But now, kind of Obey looks like the best team in the world. I don't know. EU is very stacked at the top, and Valence is right there with them.
And of course, all these teams, really important matchups in general, considering that this is week 4. Not a whole lot of time remaining before we really figure out who's going to be headed towards Gauntlet, Super Regionals, and potentially even Worlds. I mean, that's just all in the making, but that's all about the future. Right now, it's all about today. And of course, like we already mentioned, we're going to be seeing that spicy matchup between Valence and Obey.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that. Like I said, it's definitely a teller to see how Valence does. They've lost games that they definitely should not have lost before, but now they're winning and they beat Rival. It's like very, very close, especially at that 2-3-4.
How do you feel in particular, though, considering that Obey has kind of been making a marking for themselves in Europe?
I think Obey, I would call them the best team in the world right now. Dignitas does have a few losses. Obey's doing very well. Obey, you know, right there with them. But Obey has that synergy very, very fast, especially with Zalia bringing in a new solo laner this split. And Energy doesn't seem to have that, especially after getting Maniac.
Well, do you feel, though, as though Valence could potentially walk away with a 2-0 victory on this one?
I don't know if I would say that they could get a 2-0. I would not be surprised if they did, but right now I think Obey's firing on all cylinders, and Valence is getting their groove, and having a team kind of, you know, the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, that's going to be very close, and I think a 1-1 would not be surprising, but a 2-0 Obey in very close games is also not surprising.
I'm really keeping an eye out for Valence here. I think a lot of people have always said the same thing, where a team so mechanically sound, you're wondering why the puzzle pieces haven't exactly always connected, but definitely two teams to certainly keep an eye out for. And I mean, another team that we definitely have to keep in mind is going to be Dignitas, actually. Dignitas has really been looking like a powerhouse as well alongside of Obey. And with all of this in mind, they're going to be facing off against the Papis today. This could be a pretty important matchup just as far as the points are concerned. You
can see Dignitas, especially all 5 players, they have kind of the best player in that role on their team, like in the world at this point. But I think based on how Burrito is playing, or not Burrito, the Papis are playing, they can definitely win as a team. I would not be surprised if there's a 1-1 because I think the Papis are the team that can play spoiler. But with Dignitas, I'm expecting a 2-0 here.
It is pretty great that how we have the Papis and the Burritos all in the same, all in the same region at that. But
and the tacos.
Folks, it's all a scheme, guys. That's what Ron Jobber's really trying to get out here. But
it's scripted.
No scheme involved. I don't think that this game is going to be scripted at all between Dignitas and the Papis. I think that the Papis have had some very standout moments, I would say. I mean, most particularly that matchup against Rival where they managed to split. I think a lot of people brought up some expectations for the Papis that they do have the potential to compete with these top-tier teams.
With a new player, especially in middle lane, MrNazer, again, going in against Zyrhoes, who is playing like the best mid lane in the world, MrNazer is definitely stepping it up, and he's a good reason why they're winning a lot of these games.
And MrNazer's God pull is one thing to keep in mind. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Dignitas maybe try and take some shots at that, but do you realistically think that Papis are going to be able to pull the split off here?
I do not. Even though I said it was scripted and we joked about it, scripted 2-0 Dig, I think that's the expectation. I would not be surprised if these were close games. You know, the Papis have been able to draw out long games, especially versus Energy, former world champs 2 times in a row. But I think based on this, they could have a close match, but I still think Dignitas is going to pull it out. They want it too bad.
That is certainly, I think you bring up a really interesting point there, where the Papis have been a team that are able to take teams for a longer match, and if anything, that's still the experience that they're really looking for. So you got splits for both of the, or you got split for Obey versus Valence, and then the 2-0 for Dig versus Papis?
Yeah, I'm calling the 2-0 Dig. I know that's a hot take. 2-0 Dig versus the Papis, but I think it's going to be a lot better than people at home think.
Well, I got to say, I might have to just agree with you there, but we're going to be able to find out anyway. It's all the casters. Take it away.
Thank you, Taco and Ron, for those hot takes. I am John Finch. I got Anatoly here with me. And Toly, we're excited for some EU action.
Absolutely. Dignitas have been looking on point recently in this fall split, just at the top of their game here. Always throwing a lot of teams for a loop. Papis looked a little good here last week. You know, finding that split against Rival is no joke. Rival struggling, but Papis, this is going to be a good determining factor against Dignitas if that last week's performance was a fluke or not.
And on the desk, they were talking a little bit here about how Dignitas are like 5 of some of the best players in the world in their respective roles. Their 5v5 is nothing to scoff at either, Toly. Their team fight is really nuts.
They've been playing together, whether it was as a team or against each other, for just so long, so they always pick up on each other's tendencies. They know their rotations. They have their timings down, warding, pathing. Everything has just been on point for Dignitas. That's why they're the summer champions, and that's why they're still at the top here at the fall.
That's right. Right now, Dignitas sitting about, I think, 2nd place in our standings, and Papis are sitting 7th right now. So it is a bit of a match between our top-end team, our lower-end team. But Papis, I mean, they split with Rival, they split with Valence earlier, so they definitely can hang with some of the better players in EU. And we got those picks and bans ready for you to see if they can hang with Dig.
Papis are going to need to throw something really surprising at Dignitas if they want to find another 3rd split against such a top-tier team. First ban already is going to be tier, really respecting variety.
I respect variety on that tier as well. He can be a bit of a monster in that solo lane when he gets it. It's something that he's very comfortable on, so no surprise that they're banning it out. Dignitas, though, choosing to get rid of Circuit, so trying to limit some of the options for Papis in the jungle.
Also trying to protect their solo laner. Circuit is one of these goddesses that just can absolutely devastate the solo lane, next to Nemesis on top of this. And knowing Papis' lineup, their front line between Dheylo and Dracomarino there, those two players will really look to try to engage specifically in that solo lane.
Erlang Shen, the first pick for Papis. Erlang has been a little bit flex. He can sometimes go into the jungle as well, but I do likely think this will go to Creed in the solo lane. And then Sol and a Muzen Cobb picked up for Dig.
I love this play. First of all, I love a Muzen Cobb personally.
Yeah, he does.
I really do. I just spam it all the time in rank. But either way, Dignitas, they don't pick this just for the Hunter position. They also can flex this in the mid role to give it to Zyrhoes, trying to get that mid lane control. Muzen Cobb has one of the highest lane pressure dominance in all of Smite.
that solo Muzen Cobb is going to be a bit of a flex that Dig has available to him, but Papis not really flexing. They've got Raijin, who's a real strong mid laner right now, and Yi, whose early jungle clear is just nuts, totally.
Just good team fights, good balance of team fights, because if there's going to be a big team fight around an objective such as Gold Fury or Fire Giant, Yi is going to be good for that. But if there's going to be a team fight around a lane, Raijin will be dominant.
Bellona, the pick for Dignitas, a variety likely going to be very comfortable on that Bellona for Dignitas, something he's been playing for a long time. Just all around good god for them to pick up. And still, they got a bit of an eye for the jungler with Susano and Nemesis both banned out.
Trying to really focus out Dheylo, not wanting to get him in a comfortable position, making sure that the penetration is not available with that Nemesis, keeping the late game hopes alive. Also, it's very annoying for Muzen Cobb to have to deal with such junglers that can easily dive the backline.
That's right. Those are all junglers that can definitely cause a problem for a Muzen Cobb. And that early 3v3 nowadays is so important, totally. Controlling those buffs, getting those timers can kind of set the way those first 5-7 minutes go. I think that's why we see them end up picking Ravana and Ganesha. That'll give you plenty of pressure. 3v3
was always a big determining factor in all of Smite, but now more than ever, because these teams are just so close neck and neck competitively that all the team fights are not necessarily around Gold Fury or the Fire Giant. You got to take the little wins to help build the foundation before you can get to the top level of the skyscraper.
Dignitas ban out Susano, Nemesis, or Ket, and are still able to last pick Camazotz.
That's really surprising.
Where are we right now?
I mean, QvoFred will be happy knowing that he got Camazotz as the last pick here. Bellona for variety is going to allow him to also shut it down, this Yi pick. Every time Mark of the Golden Crow is coming out, that Scourge is sure to follow.
And we talked a little bit about how important the 3v3 is. It's sort of changed a little bit now because the meta's shifted. Now that we're seeing sometimes the Hunters in the middle lane and sending the Guardians over to just farm in the long lane alone, the 3v3 pressure is even more important. So I think that's what we're going to be expecting out of as Zyrhoes does take Soul. So between Zyrhoes and QvoFred, I mean, they'll have some pressure on this side of the side of the map.
Despite Zyrhoes not playing the Muzen Cobb, the way Europeans have been playing Smite recently, at least competitively, is putting the Hunter in the mid lane next to their mid mage, recognizing that between the mage and the Hunter, that's probably one of the strongest 2v2 lane clears that you'll ever have in Smite. So you do that, you look to make the rotation after the fact, and if you have that pressure, you can look for some invades shortly after.
And it looks like we don't see this a whole lot. Dracomarino and Trixtank are both going to be the ones in the long lane, so it's going to be Guardian v Guardian. Usually it's one of your Hunters is chilling over there against a Guardian. So Trixtank and Dracomarino probably just going to be slapping around so you can clear a little bit more and then rotate over to these fights. It's going to be 2v2 in the other two lanes.
Really trying to find this boxing potential. Not wanting to take it against the Bellona, though. She can easily AoE clear with that bludgeon and also the hammer that's soon to follow, giving the elementals to Dignitas as well as those right side Harpies. Actually split 1-for-1 on those Harpies.
As MrNazer rotating over with Raijin, able to help get those up. But as you said, the pressure in that solo lane has gone in favor of Dignitas. So those elementals are theirs. They're back to the wave first. And they'll have a chance here if they want to come over and try and contest the speed buff or just go back and secure their own, which it looks like is the call.
It seems that way, as well as Dignitas making the rotation for these neutral camps. The buffs are still going to be up for them later on, but look at this rotation. They're trying to kind of stop Dignitas, but they were a little bit too late. Recognizing this, now have to settle for their own rev. So a slight edge for Dignitas, controlling the elementals and 3 out of 4 of the mid Harpies.
And everyone on Team Dignitas, if we talk about like what their team fight potential's looking like, it's real scary from me. I mean, Bellona in particular on Variety when she comes in, QvoFred able to do a whole lot of damage, Zyrhoes and Arkkyl, and then Trixtank just to keep everybody safe. It's a real scary team fight from me from this Dignitas roster.
But if you look at the other side, I'm also worried for Dignitas from Papis' dive potential. Dheylo playing this Ravana has a lot of tools to be able to dive very safely between his ultimate, between that overhead kick, giving him that immunity frames.
And that's what it feels like. It feels like the Papis have gone a little bit tankier with the Warrior Jungle, Dracomarino Creed. That's going to be their call. So how is that going to pair up against the more damage focus that we're getting from Dignitas? It's probably going to be the determining factor in this game.
I just feel that Papis' composition is slightly more aggressive. Their peels are not that great as opposed to Dignitas simply because of the Geb. Geb having the shield, the Cataclysm, the knockup, whereas Dracomarino is going to control a lot of space with the Dharmic Pillars and then just augment the rest of his team's damage with that ball.
And it makes more sense. You know, if you want to go for the Assassin Jungle instead of having, you know, another slightly tanky presence for you, then making sure you pick up Geb, who can get your team out of danger, really is the smart call for him out of that support role. So that's what we're going to be looking from Trixtank. If Qvo goes in deep on like MrNazer or Warchi, he'll make sure he gets back out. Something like that is what we're going to be expecting from him.
Good timing from Papis securing their own purple buff, not able to steal their way into Dignitas, but at the end of the day, rather, still doing a good job keeping everything in line. No one is like really too far behind. They're just playing a very slow and meticulous, calculating farming game, hitting level 5 first, but still not wanting to press forward, being very defensive minded.
I think you're right about that pick idea from the Papis too. Take a look at Dheylo. He's gone with Blink for Ravana, so he really is looking for that engage, that initiation on those team fights. He wants to be the one going in and saying, this is the target that I'm going to root out so that we can go ahead and take him down quick.
As a Ravana, you just got to get in there and throw them bows every single time that you can get. You're trying to get the slow off and allow MrNazer to follow up with a Raijin, and the range provided from MrNazer is good enough to allow Dheylo to make that Blink play. And honestly, you don't even have to worry about defensive peel for Dheylo because of how much he can bait with his kit.
And we're seeing a lot of what we were seeing from this early meta. Now that those neutral camps have been farmed up, there's really not much farm on the map. That's when we bring our hunters back over to this long lane over here on the Gold Fury side of the map so they can get this dedicated farm. And now Trixtank and Dracomarino are back a part of that mid fight, but it's actually QvoFred who's hanging out on the right side with Erlang Shen.
4 out of 5 Dignitas members are actually at the top of the experience per minute, doing a good job of just min-maxing their rotations. And that's just what happens whenever you clear the lane first and being able to control those neutral mid objectives, whether it's elementals, mid harpies, or the oracles.
And it's also a little bit of what happens when you're maybe the best team in the world, like Dignitas is, going up against, you know, a lower end team. You start to be able to develop those early game leads, even without any kills or any invades or anything happening. They're just working a little bit better on the map. And we see MrNazer going in a little bit on the Zyrhoes, but just having to back off, so not too much that comes from it. And Warchi will take his red.
Really abusing the fact that Zyrhoes didn't back to lane yet. He has still his starter item and that tiny trinket, whereas Nazer sitting with a good power spike, finishing off that book of stuff, neglecting going for that starter item, puts him in a comfortable spot. And the fact that Dignitas hasn't abused him quite yet is allowing him to safely farm.
And my eyes are on QvoFred for that as the ultimate comes out from Warchi on top of Arkkyl. If MrNazer is going to go for this Book of Toph with that limited mobility, or like, as you said, not nearly as much sustain, come over here. You don't necessarily have to get the kill, but just poke him out. Make him go back to base more often. And
it's not a bad idea for Nazer to do this route simply because Dracomarino's on the Ganesha. He has the damage and the aggression followed with Dheylo's Ravana. So this is probably the best mind to pursue, rather, the aggressive mindset from Papis if they're going to try to catch a W here.
And we talked about it a little bit already, but Dignitas do have about a 700 to 800 or so gold lead just from being able to control some of that neutral farm a little bit better. The experience lead, though, you mentioned, where they're sitting up at the top of the chart, all 5 members, is what could potentially be a problem at about 1,700 gold in their favor.
That's just how you could tell the top tier team from a good team. Their ability to take nothing and make a little bit of something out of it. And that's something Dignitas have been doing time in and time out ever since their inception in the beginning of Season 4 with Variety's new team. They just always have been making the plays.
Trixtank could be in trouble. Had to use the Cataclysm to force back Dheylo and Warchi. Dheylo's ultimate just to try and close the space, but Arkyl's here now, and that's the damage a Muzen can put out. Immediately, 2 members got to turn around.
Good discipline by Arkkyl, not pursuing to pick up the Stinger. It's very tempting sometimes to want to go for it. You know, like, yeah, I got the hit. If I pick this up 20 more seconds, I could go in again, but recognizing 2 additional Poppy members were right around the corner.
And that's because of their ward control on this side of the map. They've got 4 wards over here, so they would have been able to see that rotation from Dracomarino and MrNazer, and Arkkyl backing up, saying it ain't worth it. I know that cooldown's good, but it's not worth my life.
And just like this, Arkkyl 2-level lead over Warchi. Also a substantial health lead, being able to really bully this lane even further, despite Dracomarino being there.
And it frees up Trixtank to come over here and rotate to these fire elementals when Dracomarino has to stick around. MrNazer gets the jump interrupted, and those elementals go the way of Dignitas. So that's an example of pressure on the duo lane, freeing up Trixtank to come impact those elementals.
Just a slow and steady pace of a tug of war that Dignitas are winning since the beginning. It seems that Papis, they can't really find the right hole to poke into to get any sort of a lead. As Dracomarino is still sitting in the left-hand lane, making sure that Warchi doesn't get behind.
And this time, QvoFred is here for the speed buff right as it respawns. Creed and Dheylo are both here to try and contest, and Qvo's actually kind of alone here. He's got to make sure he doesn't get caught out. That Bat Out of Hell does come out right away, and he'll use it to run away. but it looks like Dheylo was able to pick up his speed.
Risk versus reward out of QvoFred, not able to steal that one away, making himself use that defensive ultimate. But it's better to use that ultimate than the Purification Bees, simply because it's a shorter cooldown, and you're able to cover so much distance with that ultimate that you can also use it offensively or defensively just like that.
And QvoFred might even have recognized, because Creed and Dheylo, both of their ultimates were down. That might have been another reason why he went for it. I'm not sure if he had that information, but he wasn't in as much danger as he might have been if those two ults had been there.
I mean, knowing Dignitas, yes, QvoFred definitely had that information. Their communications are always on point, and every team here, whether it's Europe, NA, SPL, SCL, the comms are just so good here, and I'm always excited to see how these teams execute.
Dignitas executing as well as anybody right now, looking like they could be one of the best teams in the world between them and Obey, who are undefeated right now. So Dignitas, when they go up against a team like the Papis, who I'm not saying are bad or anything, but it's a matchup they're expected to win, they really got to make sure they're getting those points because Obey aren't giving anything up. I
mean, Dignitas have proven themselves, right? They've won the summer split.
Yeah.
Papis haven't done nearly the same. They've always been in and out of the challenger circuit, just so close to qualifying to the SPL, finally getting their shot here yet again in the fall split. But the last split was just kind of the bottom of the pack, and thus far, they haven't been making the most progress in the world.
Dignitas once again get those fire elementals, and Papis having a hard time contesting some of these smaller objectives. And this is what Dignitas does so well. They play very patiently, I say. They are able to build up their early lead, and then when they feel like they have an advantage, they'll either steal away an objective or just force you to fight on it.
Dignitas are just starving Papis out, completely bleeding them to infinity, because the next power play for Dignitas is when the level 12s happen. That second relic slot opens up, and that's going to be 10 relic versus 5. That's where Dignitas is probably going to force the next neutral objective.
Dheylo hanging out over here, and there's the blink coming into play. Beats already have to come out from Arkkyl. Ultimate over the top is enough, and Warchi ends up getting first blood, and that's what you got to do against a Muzen Cobb.
Just no escape available, and before the level 12 happens, you don't have the Aegis and the Purification Beads. You can beads all you want against the slow from the Sons of Warchi, but the damage from Dheylo is just too much to handle, especially cutting the distance with Blink.
And I think that's a great point you make, because that was a situation where neither one of them would have been enough on their own. If he'd had Aegis, still would have been stunned and slowed. He would have gotten caught out. If he had beads, as we saw, the damage was still too much. So without having both, there really wasn't a way for Arkkyl to get out of there. And it was an excellent gank by Dheylo, who we've been saying, you know, we need to see a little more from.
Absolutely, and that's going to allow Warchi now just to get a good spot in the late game. And Muzen Cobb's late game is pretty good, especially if you can find the disarms. But Warchi is no joke as well. With that mark of the Golden Crow, can absolutely melt any sort of tank in front of his face.
And Dignitas looking again to not give up the speed buff of Papis for free. It's a 4v4 over here as our hunters are both still over there in that long lane. And right now, Papis are having to back up. The Dharmic Pillars do come out from Dracomarino to try and help contest, and Variety ends up leeching the buff. Now it's Trixtank in trouble, but Zyrhoes cleans up MrNazer, no problem. Cataclysm comes out, Dheylo gets stunned, and QvoFred is here to start trying to put in some damage.
Trying to do whatever he can, because the ultimate is not available out of Dheylo. He used it in the left side, giving Dignitas the opportunity to avenge Arkyl's death on the right side of the map. Dignitas are just so good about taking something out of nothing, like we saw this whole entire game, getting the neutral objectives, and now finally taking a team fight around that speed buff. Finding a kill onto MrNazer was really good, simply because of the way Zyrhoes was able to zone him out with those stellar bursts.
And that was the fight we were saying Dignitas needed to take. They needed to come down and sort of force their little bit of lead that they have on an objective. I believe they do end up stealing the speed buff away as Qvo has one, and now it's Dheylo who's underneath the Suns as Arkkyl is again under pressure. Trixtank is here but unable to save his hunter. Warchi ends up getting credit for that kill, now sitting 2-0-0.
Papis finally recognizing the weakness out of Dignitas. Not necessarily the player Arkkyl, but just simply the god that he's playing yet again without an escape. He did pick up now the Aegis. I think when he died the last time, he was still level 11, so he didn't pick it up, and then he hasn't back from that death till...
Clean up Trixtank, but he can't. Now Warchi's the one in no man's lane with 4 members of Team Dignitas hunting him down.
Papis just overextending. Luckily for Warchi, Dheylo was there to back him up. Being that nightclub bouncer's like, nah, you need an ID, and you need to have the proper dress code if you want to come in here, and Warchi is going to escape with his life. But so unfortunate for Papis. I like the idea and mindset considering that Dignitas were not in position necessarily right off the bat, but that reset, nobody was in the circle. It's actually QvoFred finding the kill onto Warchi.
Yeah, Warchi could not get away. QvoFred looping around and catching the very low hunter before he can get back to base. That is a big kill for him to now give a chance for Arkkyl to get some farm that Warchi can't get and sort of establish a little bit of that lead back in the hunter role as Dignitas, again, steal away that Gold Fury. Now they're sitting at about 3,000.
And this is just the veteranship out of Dignitas. They're not willing to take that risk of the Gold Fury because they know they could win the little things as QvoFred finds Dheylo off screen, finding 2 very quick kills for Dignitas' jungler, building into a very aggressive route here, going for Yoden's route for that cooldown penetration option, and then probably going to get either a Stone Cutting Sword or that Masamune.
And Dheylo was likely just trying to defend his own speed buff, which you've seen Dignitas make a point of contesting every time it comes up. They were able to take it away one more time, and now QvoFred sitting at 2-0-0 on the Camazotz. That's going to be a bit of a problem for Papis.
Absolutely. Here, he's just going to be doing too much damage, especially with Variety now sitting at about the same level. These two powerhouses are like kind of the Bash Brothers here. If you ever saw the D3 Mighty Ducks, they're just going to go in there and just double team you.
They are very scary when they're able to rotate into a team fight. Variety is a little bit up on Creed, nothing too major, but his impact when he's able to come in so far has just been a little bit better than what Creed's been able to do. The shining point for Papis, though, is Warchi, and we've seen Dheylo come in and help set up some kills for Warchi twice, so that's what Papis have going for them.
The biggest difference right now is the net worth difference between Creed and Variety, looking at about an 800 gold lead or so difference, and that's going to be the difference between finishing off this mystical male, also going for a different relic selection out of Variety, going for the Thorns, really trying to abuse probably Warchi in the late game with that.
And that's a smart pickup for him because what were we just saying? Warchi's kind of the lead that Papis have, so he picks up a relic to try and shut down the area where the Papis are going to be able to do the most damage, where they're doing the best in the laning phase so far. So that's what we're seeing from Variety. Pick up the Thorns, shut him down, while Creed just goes a little bit more team fighting. Wouldn't
be surprised to see Hyde of Nemi in line to follow suit very shortly after that, because MrNazer, despite him finishing off that Book of Thoth early on, his build has kind of staggered a little bit, going for a defensive Hyde of Urchin more than likely.
That Hyde of the Urchin will help make him a little bit more survivable, and it does have some synergy with the Book of Thoth as well, since Hyde of the Urchin does provide some mana as well, so he'll get a little bit more power from it, but again, that's mostly going to be a defensive item, so it could be a bit of a power spike. Arkkyl, though, happily taking the trade up against Warchi. It's hard to fight into a Muzen Cobb.
Especially when that Muzen Cobb has all the vision in the world to see where the other 4 members are. Arkkyl is going to absorb some of those shots from the Suns, but he'll be very happy knowing Warchi has the back.
Dignitas are forcing the fight. Creed is the one that's in trouble, or rather it's Dheylo getting chased down by QvoFred up into the air, cleans that kill up, no problem. Trixtank just hanging out between the pillars and looking for more.
The shell was just a little bit too late out of Dracomarino. MrNazer, though, going to get double knocked up, taking half of his health away as Dracomarino is forced to disengage. Dignitas are just going to group up around this portal demon with Dheylo dead and Warchi on the left. It's going to be an easy 4-on-3 on the right.
And there's really no way left for Warchi trying to contest this as Dignitas do get that portal demon. That tier 1 tower is under a lot of trouble. Trixtank going to try and contest Dracomarino, but coming up a little short.
Trying to stop the back out of MrNazer. He actually used his teleport into the left side mid Harpies, and I think Trixtank saw it at the last second. And if he stopped that back, I think the rest of Dignitas were relatively close to be able to follow up and find another pick.
Being able to follow up and get another pick is what they were looking for. Dignitas just not quite able to get it, but they do get the portal demon. They set up 4-2 here in the kills, do Dignitas, and that tier 1 tower on the left for Warchi is looking like it's on its last leg. Arkkyl has a lot of pressure over there.
It's just very difficult to fight into this Hu Yi. He just does so much damage, and the good thing about Warchi's Hu Yi is that he's able to cover the range with those bounces. Poppy's going to try another very ambitious Gold Fury, but Dheylo's very low. What?
And Arkkyl is able to clean up Dheylo, and they drop the Gold Fury and instead try and go for the team fight. Cataclysm comes out from Trixtank, and the Zyrhoes ultimate is immediately there to bring Warchi low. Now QvoFred is going to be the one to try and clean that one up, and he does. And in the back, it's Creed trying to zone out 3, but not going very well for him. Variety not even a part of the fight.
No, he doesn't need to, because the rest of his team is cleaning house. 3 dead Poppies. Variety still in mid. Creed is soon to fall. That's going to be 4 dead as Dracomarino's the only one in a surrender vote from Poppies.
Wow. Well, it's a 2-game set, totally, and when you realize that maybe this one's a little bit out of hand, you lose essentially a 4v5 because Variety's not even there. Go ahead, reset, and try again in game 2.
I think Papis, they wanted to take too many risks. Trying to go for the first Gold Fury, I like that. There's just slight mistake of resetting it. Second one, too ambitious there. The level lead from Dignitas was just too much to handle. There was no man advantage. Everyone from Dignitas was relatively close. Dheylo just got absolutely blown up. He didn't have the tankiness necessary to survive against Arkkyl.
I originally liked that second Gold Fury call because it did look like it was just 2 members there from Dignitas, but Dheylo gets blown up, and his team makes the call to drop DPS on the Gold Fury and try and help the fight, which kind of already seemed like it was going a little bit in Dig's favor, so they don't really end up getting either one.
That's the beef for you. Arkkyl playing it to perfection, you know, and that's the